Hey everybody, it's a Saturday and you're ready for another episode of Drew Geraci's Comic Books. Well, let me start first. My name is Drew Geraci. I've been a comic book inker for almost 30 years, believe it or not, for mostly DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, Image, IDW, you name it. And I've also come out with my third volume of my series called The Demands. And so I'm a literary enthusiast, a rock enthusiast, and finder of lost loves. So let's go into the time that Captain Marvel was on acid. Yes, and it got by the Comics Code because Steve Englehart, he liked to push the boundaries. He did something similar in Doctor Strange, but in the Comics Code, who is the overriding non-governmental authority who would approve or disapprove things, they didn't get it. They didn't catch it. So all the better for the story. Okay, this is Captain Marvel Volume 4. What's funny is I'd like to see Captain Marvel on acid more because Marv-ell, he was the Kree Marv-ell, the first Marvel version. It's got a whole history, but if he was on acid, he'd probably be a lot more interesting character. But throughout his 62 issue run, he was dry as drywall. He was just in search of a plot device. He really had no. There was a lot of self-evaluation, a lot of word balloons and all that, but he really didn't have. He just wasn't interesting. When The Death of Captain Marvel came along by Jim Starlin, who created probably the best era of Captain Marvel, it was great, but it was very. It chokes you up, but you didn't really miss him. Anyway, and then he was replaced with Monica Rambeau as who had the title Captain Marvel through the 80s and 90s. She's now called Photon. She's got all these different light powers. She's probably one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe. So anyway, Jim Starlin just did he basically broke out big on this title for a year and a half prior to this era. And he provides his last story that he did for the series is the first one collected here, and it's the one with Nitro. And this was brilliant because I'm jumping ahead. I keep forgetting these books are only. That's sweet. Anyway, he fights Nitro. I'm just jumping ahead because that's not what the point of this video is. And there's a cracked case of some kind of terrible poison. What is it? A gas that's just a nerve gas. So he crashes. But, he spends this issue in bed convalescing while Ant-Man and the Wasp help him out. I'll get to that in a second. But Jim Starlin would revisit this later around 1980 or 81 when that this nerve gas actually gave Captain Marvel cancer. And it wasn't even like he was planned. He just thought he wanted to kill off Captain Marvel. He was offered to do it, and he's done a lot of stories that have dealt with death, whether it's Adam Warlock and many of the other books that he had done, self-published and otherwise. So this was my very first issue of Captain Marvel. There's a Ron Wilson, Frank Giacoia cover, which I like. It just really grabbed me. But what's wild is Alfredo Alcala is doing the art, and he didn't do that much. He inked mostly in the superhero titles, but a lot of his most, this is brilliant stuff anyway, but he inked a lot of John Buscema on Savage Sword of Conan, and it just took it to another level. So I gotta get my initials on my belt buckle like that. Well, anyway, the nerve gas is making him basically he's gonna die if they don't switch atoms. And anyway, here comes Annihilus, and so long story, and this isn't germane to the episode, but beautiful art. I just love it. The only thing is, it's not quite Marvel standard art as far as this would be. He would be closer, and there would be some background, and a little more forced perspective. That was the Marvel stand at the time, because really that's kind of a dead panel. And again, he's not usually associated with superheroes. So he and Pablo Marcos, I mean, in a lot of those artists from the Philippines, they were great finishers and great artists in their own right. They just in their own right, but they just weren't suited for superheroes. And at this time, that's pretty much all there was. So Rick Jones is about to be killed by the Living Laser, who is sent by the Lethal Legion, which I forgot to mention. Oh, the Lunatic Legion. Okay, first time we hear mention of it. If you fail, you did nitro. Blah 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 blah. So, and for some reason, he's getting a threat, which is kind of silly later. But here comes Ant-Man and the Wasp. And this is how I fell in love with Ant-Man. He had a brief run in Marvel Feature that where he was stuck at his ant size, and they kept that costume for a little bit, and they switched it back. So our pal, the Living Laser, takes off. That's a nice page there. So, and again, this is dead. It's like there's no backgrounds and there's no dramatic lighting. It just really sits there. And I don't know, maybe he thought there was, I mean, Englehart, like a lot of writers at the time, were very long-winded, and following in the steps of Stan and Roy. So, there's the Ant-Man suit, much better. What happened was, Jan came along, the Wasp, and she popped out one of those rubies that powered the laser, Living Laser, and he's like, that man has plastic and metal insides. He was a cyborg. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, why did he get that silly threat earlier in the issue? You know, you're not to fail. It just suggests that there'd be a punishment, but you know, he's a friggin' robot. So him jumping ahead. Beautiful stuff. But it really threw me though, because I was like, I love the cover, and then the inside was so different. And it was one of my first exposures to comics, and I was just like, wow, this is really different from anybody else. So, Wrath of the Watcher. This episode's going to be actually 2 parts. I didn't have enough from both subjects to make an episode, so this was another fill-in with like a couple pages, but for some reason, he's just revisiting, Marv-ell's history and how he's supposed to be protector of the universe. But within minutes now, Captain Marvel will see that the Lunatic Legion he opposed has a base here on the moon in the home of the Watcher. He will come here to protect himself, and he will discover that I am who desires his demise. I, the Watcher, I shall be forced to murder Captain Marvel. So, you're like, this is Alan Weiss and Jim Starlin layouts, and pretty cool. So, Gil Kane, Klaus Janson cover. Can you imagine owning that piece? So, we go to Al Milgrom, who becomes a regular artist for about a year. I don't know, I would say 20 issues. And Klaus Janson bringing the juice. I mean, that's beautiful perspective. I mean, it's crazy perspective. It's very Kirby perspective, but that's not a bad thing. And, this is pretty adventurous stuff. It's fun. And Captain Marvel can't figure out where they came from. And, Ant-Man's like, dumbass. Don't you know Luna also means the moon? Huh? What? So he explains. And this is very much a Gil Kane shot. He did this on a couple issues of Marvel Team. It's so audacious and insane, but it works, I guess. I mean, I guess because I grew up with it. I mean, I don't think it would really, really work. So, Captain Marvel thanks them and takes off, and Rick Jones wants to be the rock star. And so, he changes from Marv-ell to back to Rick Jones. Rick Jones, the same one who hung around with the Hulk and Captain America prior to this. So this lady, Dandy, is his opening act, and he's going to be away for a while. He just make sure you get back, in a reasonable time, because you get the show in a week or two. So she says goodbye to him, and he's like, "Wait, hold on a second. Psst, here's a present in case your personal thing gets boring." Dandy, what? Vitamin C, kid. What do you think it is? So he walks away, and he's looking at this pill, and he goes, "Vitamin C?" Well, and he's arguing with Marv-ell because they had to share atoms for many, many years, and they basically had no private life. They were unwitting. they were unintentionally eavesdropping on each other because they shared a mind, or their minds connected. So that's pretty cool there. Well, so time to go to the moon. Captain Marvel shows up at Avengers Mansion and switches to Rick Jones. Rick Jones borrows a spacesuit that just happens to be laying around because they have to make a trip to the moon, and the trip to the moon is going to take much more than the 3-hour time limit that Captain Marv-ell can appear in this universe. And then he goes to the negative zone. And then when he switches to, if he's in space, switching to Rick Jones, he won't have any air, so that's why the suit. And they head to the moon. Okay. Well, nice page there. Another Lunatic Legion guy who is another robot, and then Rick's just standing around. Really should have brought my guitar. And insolent stripling. Stripling is one of those great old words that nobody uses. It's usually witless stripling, and usually supervillains use it because it just, it's not cool to call people striplings. I don't know why, but maybe it's because it's old school. I don't care. I don't know. I'm babbling. So that's a beautiful splash, and really it turns out they don't even explain quite why one backhand of Rick's arm ends up breaking Nihilus into like 1,000 little characters, versions of them, and it just kind of like go along with it. So again, he says, "Sure wish I brought my guitar, or a comic, or some almond joy, or something to while the time." Huh? He finds the pill Dandy gave him. Well, she said it was vitamin C. Might as well try it. Yeah, right. Vitamin C. Go tell your mom it's vitamin C. Okay, so they're heading to the moon. They're almost there. And they end up in the blue area of the moon. The Watcher has been for forever and a day, which down the road will be the place where Phoenix died in the Claremont Byrne era. So he's checking out the scene, and he's talking about the Kree, who also set up nearby, and it was all explained this long Avengers storyline. So he flies over further. Doesn't hit landing. It doesn't land very well. I missed my footsteps in the lunar dust. How can that be? I learned how to walk alien landscapes as a fleet cadet, and since then Eon has tightened my senses. I can't seem to concentrate. There's a tingling to my jaw. So even the panels are freaking out, man. Can I be coming down with something like the cold? I'm not immune. Perhaps I should have asked Rick for Rick's vitamin C. Come to think of it, I don't feel his thoughts anymore. Everything slowing. And he's tripping. Marv-ell is tripping as a result. All this crazy stuff's going on. And the Watcher shows up. And this makes no sense. It's never been followed up on, ever. I mean, I read this thing over again. So it was like, I knew you would find me, Basically, he says, I have very little heart or talent to dissembling. Never mind, long story. He's like, to delay in our ultimate opposition would mean a manipulative charade fit only for beings less than we. When I do what I must, blah, blah, blah. But I must murder you! Okay. That escalated quickly. So, back and forth, toss a pipe, it busts on his head. So, and Marv-ell is still having such a hard time concentrating because of the acid. He says perhaps it is better this way. Anyway, must be Rick's doing. He's getting sweats. He's tripping out. Yes, I expected much more. You're ill, Marv-ell. I see that now. And I cannot bring myself to end your life while you are less than whole. Instead, I give you oblivion. God, those Jansen eggs just really make everything pop. So, anyway, I left myself a note here. He goes, there's little left for me to do now. Self-respect has fled alongside honor, leaving only the gnawing need to act and act and act. to cover each misdeed with another even more heinous one, and there's no turning back. So he lays him down like a baby. He goes, "Here, I've brought him to you. Let his blood be at your hands." So now here's the thing. A couple pages ago, what happened to killing Marv-ell? I must kill you. It's like, I don't know if the pages were written out of order, or I don't know. I mean, a lot of mid-70s Marvel was pretty crazy as far as story-wise inconsistencies afloat, and a lot of times that was due to changing creative teams, and sometimes it was just because somebody thought of something better. So Steve Englehart, if you're out there, please let me know what your plans were for that. So more Jansen's just inks and coloring. Anytime Jansen can color as well as ink, it's a super beautiful treat. And anyway, yeah, they talk about all that boring shit that was in Avengers 133 about the Kree and the Kotai and stuff like that. But at least it was boring back then. I get it now. But they put them under this very pop art, very Steranko, very Neil Adams there for a moment. It's really neat. I mean, I don't know. Marv-ell seemed to suit Milgram. There's some, I don't know. Some artists work better with different titles, and I think he did pretty good on these issues here. So the Watcher's there, just watching, and he's turning towards his machines. Can he truly be my enemy? Blah 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 blah. I have done 4 more. About a conflict in this home. I've done 4 more than that. And for one of my race to do anything is a crime beyond reckoning. And thus, at long last, I have no recourse. Our final act of, I wanted to cap a life of dark disgrace. He's going to shoot me or shoot himself. Click. So it transports, and it says really odd. He goes, "Before I depart, Captain, I must beg my pardon for my actions towards you. Please forgive me." And it's like, well, why? You weren't possessed. I mean, you were acting out as a Watcher, which you're not supposed to. This is really cool. This was done. Jack Kirby did this effect, not even in FF yet. He did that in one of those Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense before Fantastic Four 1. It's just and that's a great cover too. So, anyway. So there's a lot of blah 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 blah, and they don't really go into. They say they're basically, I've already proclaimed my unworthiness to you. It's going to be the trial of the Watcher. At least Autu, the one we know, he takes him out. I mean, they take him elsewhere, and there's another Watcher hanging out, and sporting some crazy clothes. And this guy basically watches with appreciation as Marv-ell takes on this wild jungle cat with the antennae. So somehow they get to where the Watcher is on that section of the planet. It's not really fully explained. You just kind of go along. And also, what else is Marv-ell and Rick Jones going to do? Oh, they're separated briefly. Many a time there will be a plot device where they get separated, and then they have to get back together because they share atoms on this plane, and they wouldn't be able to live without each other. Captain Marvel's like, "I can't quit you," and basically, this is so nuts. He says he basically says he wants to speak in the Watcher's defense, Autu's defense, and this head chief Watcher's like, really letting him have it. Now, why would he come to his defense? I mean, again, there's one thing about breaking your oath and then saying, "I must kill you," and then hand him over to the Lunatic Legion. I mean, there's never followed up on, and it's just bizarre. So it goes back to the origin of the Watcher that was way back in Tales of Suspense or something. Well, and talks basically about all his appearances and debating with Galactus. That was the Deus Ex Machina from the issue of Reed and Sue's Wedding, FF Annual 3. It goes on and on and on. Just all these wrong things where he intervened. Finally, and most damningly, he raised his fist in violence towards the Kree man. This is not the conduct of the Watcher. And it's my understanding that it's always been, aided Earth, not hurt it. La 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 la. And then here comes that big old cat again. Don't know why, don't care. I'm skipping the fighting. So he talks about saving incalculable lives. He goes, yeah, what about the trauma and the illness and stuff like that? And it goes back to when the origin of the Watcher, where all the Watchers did volunteer all their knowledge and basically ended up creating atomic war between planets because they, instead of using it to prosper, they used it to wage war because that's human nature, and that's generally alien nature too, at least the sentient ones. For a second I thought that was the what's his name, the Supreme Intelligence, because he's green, and but nope, it's just a Watcher. And he basically apologizes. I've learned my lesson for the second time. I shall not do wrong again. And he gets an attaboy. It is good. You mean that's it? No punishment? He says he'll be good, and they believe him? Well, after all, he is a Watcher. Well, it's just screwy. It's just bizarre. It was very fun, and I read those issues individually, but reading them in order like this, that it was never followed up on why the Watcher had this blood in his eye all of a sudden. They didn't explain that it was like a temporary madness. Here we go, some of the fun stuff. I love Marvel Masterwork formats. That's about it. I do want to share one thing, though. That's really cool. There's an inker named Al McWilliams, who's, I think he's a penciler too, but I think he was up in age when he did this stuff because he passed away shortly, like a year or so after this. He did some work for the Atlas Seaboard comics that lasted very briefly, and there he is there inking, really contributing, really making the art strong. That's just bizarre, but it's great. All that, look at the clang thingy where they joined atoms. And I just look at, the faces are so fleshed out. You could almost touch them. Okay, let me see. Hanging out at the mansion, having a soda. Again, the faces are just so... the only one I could think of who comes closest maybe at the time was like Bob McLeod, or McLeod as I always called him, because they just did amazing faces. And everyone's laughing at Rick Jones. The 50s haircut, the 60s ballaad, the 70s spacesuit. This is a Renaissance man of decadence. They're all laughing. So he does the rock and roll thing. You didn't listen. You didn't hear what I'm saying. You missed the whole point, Crash. Have a freak show. Blazes with all you. And they're like, oh, wow. The Who already did it. Not like that, man. So he gets a little rock and roll minute. So again, it's just amazing how much he fleshes out, because Milgram's stuff is uneven, and he's very much dependent on who inks him. Very much so. And this early stuff, and just like the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, original stuff that I will show in a future episode, it's just Al McWilliams, he's the man. Look at that. So much emotion there. All right, well, that's our little tale of when Captain Marvel was on acid and somehow made it. Whoop, as I knock shit over. So just to wrap up, I'm going to do me a plug. Here we go. There. The Demand series. It's about a Pittsburgh indie band who plays a lot of bars and clubs, owned by the Russian mob. Our lead character, Lainey Kilburn, she's dating one of the second or third generation mobsters called Mobblers, and a lot of shit goes down. It's a lot of violence, a lot of cursing, a lot of humor, and occasional romance, and just really, really dark shite. So this is the latest one. It just came out. Now, don't feel pressured to buy all 3 books. I would like you to. It's on Amazon, free for Kindle Unlimited, and also paperback available. But if it's intimidating to start 3 books, you could jump on book 3 because I pretty much fill you in as it goes along. And quote by no less than Chuck Dixon. It says, terse and funny shotgun prose that reflects the attitude of the people it portrays. Layered characters and a strong ensemble cast that surround and antagonize. Lead character Lady. These people live and breathe on the page. As brought to life by Geraci, who explores the nighttime netherworld of clubs and bars for those who rock while we sleep. And, yeah, basically, there's Lainey's in a 4-way war between her manager, the Russian mob, an FBI guy, and I can't remember who the 4th person is. I'm pressed all of a sudden. So, her bandmates, too. I mean, they're kind of dicks. Well, I took this picture, I added to it, I did this. This was downtown at the Strip District in Pittsburgh. I posted this on a telephone pole. Did all that very college-y type stuff where you rip off the phone numbers. And so, I hope you guys dig it. It's a real breezy read. You can read it over the weekend. That's why I do them in these formats. So, give it a try. Check out the reviews on Amazon. I've got a ton of them that, basically let you know what's going on, how they like it. I'm not going to be shy. They like it. They really do like it. So, anyway, have a good Saturday, everybody. Peace out.